Hi, I'm Kenzie. At 63, I'd spent decades building a life that allowed me to retire comfortably. $2 million comfortably, to be exact. My late husband and I had sacrificed vacations, dinners out, and countless small luxuries to ensure a stable future. After he passed 3 years ago, I'd been managing just fine on my own. Mrs. Reynolds, there seems to be some confusion with your account, said Elaine, my personal banker of 15 years, her voice unusually tense over the phone. Could you come down to the branch right away? What kind of confusion? I asked, setting down my gardening gloves. I'd been planting the tulip bulbs that would bloom next spring. I'd rather discuss it in person, she replied. It's regarding a withdrawal request. 30 minutes later, I walked into First National, still wearing my dirt-stained jeans and faded University of Michigan sweatshirt. Elaine waved me over immediately, her typically neat appearance slightly disheveled, reading glasses perched precariously on her nose. Thank goodness you're here, she whispered, ushering me toward her office. They're still at the manager's desk. Who's still? The words died in my throat as I spotted them. My son Thomas and his wife Vanessa sitting across from the bank manager, papers spread before them. They've presented a power of attorney document, Elaine explained quickly. They're attempting to transfer your entire savings to an account in the Cayman Islands. My knees nearly buckled. That's impossible. I never signed any. I know, Elaine nodded. The signatures didn't match our records. That's why I called you. I straightened my spine and marched toward them. Thomas spotted me first, his face draining of color. Mom, what are you doing here? He stammered, nudging Vanessa, who turned with practiced grace. Kenzie, what a surprise. Vanessa's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. We were just sorting out some paperwork for you. You know how you hate dealing with finances. The bank manager, Mr. Peterson, looked between us with growing concern. Mrs. Reynolds, your son and daughter-in-law were just explaining how you've decided to relocate funds for an investment opportunity. Is that what they told you? I kept my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. May I see this power of attorney they've presented? Mr. Peterson slid the document across the desk. The signature was a poor imitation of my handwriting. That's not my signature, I said flatly. Thomas leapt to his feet. Mom, you're confused, remember? We discussed this last month when we visited. Sit down, Thomas, I said quietly. Kenzie, honey, Vanessa attempted, her perfectly manicured hand reaching for mine. You've been so forgetful lately. That's why you agreed to let us help manage things. I looked at Mr. Peterson. I want to press charges. Mom, Thomas exploded. You can't be serious. We're your family. Family doesn't steal $2 million, I replied, my voice ice cold. Later that afternoon, I sat in my kitchen with my neighbor and closest friend, Darlene. Her salt and pepper curls bounced as she shook her head in disbelief. I just can't believe Thomas would do something like this, she said, pouring more tea into my cup. Believe it, I said, rubbing my temples. The police are checking the document for fingerprints. They think Vanessa may have been the mastermind. What makes them say that? Darlene asked, leaning forward. The bank's security footage shows her handling the papers more, directing Thomas, I sighed. Plus, they've been investigating a similar case at another branch. The method matches. What are you going to do? Darlene's eyes were wide with concern. First, I'm changing my will, I said, reaching for my phone. Then I'm calling Marcus. Your lawyer brother-in-law? Good thinking, Darlene nodded. But Kenzie, honey, are you sure you want to go through with pressing charges? He's still your son. I looked down at the family photo on my kitchen table, Thomas's graduation day. The memory of his proud smile now tainted with today's betrayal. The son I raised wouldn't have done this, Dar. I need to know what else they've been planning. The police detective, a no-nonsense woman named Rivera with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, spread several documents across my dining room table. Mrs. Reynolds, we found something concerning, she said, pointing to bank statements from an account I'd never seen before. This shell company was created 6 months ago, with transfers that match your regular withdrawal patterns. What does that mean? I asked, though the sinking feeling in my stomach suggested I already knew. It means they've been siphoning small amounts from your accounts for months, testing to see if you'd notice, Detective Rivera explained. The big withdrawal attempt today was their endgame. Marcus entered from the kitchen, legal notepad in hand. I've contacted the bank's fraud department, he said. They're freezing any suspicious accounts linked to Thomas or Vanessa. How much have they already taken? I asked, dreading the answer. About 90,000, Detective Rivera replied. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's impossible. I check my statements. The statements you've been receiving are forgeries, she explained gently. Your real statements were redirected to a P.O. box they opened? My phone rang. Thomas. I put it on speaker. Mom, this is all a huge misunderstanding, he began, his voice falsely cheerful. Vanessa and I were just trying to protect your money. There's this investment opportunity. Save it, Thomas, I interrupted. Detective Rivera is here with me now. A beat of silence. You called the police? On your own son? His voice turned cold. After everything I've done for you since Dad died? What exactly have you done, Thomas? I asked. Besides stealing from me? I've checked on you, visited you. Not my fault you're so pathetically lonely you can't see when people are just pretending to care. Marcus grabbed the phone. Thomas, this is Marcus. You should know we're pursuing both criminal charges and civil damages. Uncle Marcus, you're helping her do this to me? Thomas sounded genuinely shocked. To your own nephew? You forged legal documents and committed grand theft, Thomas, Marcus replied calmly. What did you expect would happen? The doorbell rang. Darlene entered, followed by a young woman I recognized as Thomas's assistant, Zoe. Mrs. Reynolds, Zoe said, clutching a folder. I found something you need to see. Who's that? Thomas demanded through the phone. Is that Zoe? Zoe, remember your non-disclosure agreement? Zoe's hands shook as she placed the folder on the table. These are emails between Thomas and Vanessa discussing plans to have you declared mentally incompetent. You little traitor, Thomas shouted through the speaker. You're fired. Already quit, Zoe replied, her voice stronger than I'd expected. Mrs. Reynolds, they've been planning this for almost a year. They even have a doctor willing to sign evaluation papers. Thomas, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I'm going to hang up now. The next time we speak will be in court. Mom, wait. I ended the call and looked around at the faces watching me. Detective Rivera, Marcus, Darlene, and Zoe, all waiting to see if I would break down. I want everything, I said finally. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence. I want to understand exactly what my son was planning to do to me. Kenzie, Darlene began hesitantly. Maybe you should... No, I cut her off. No more maybes. No more benefit of the doubt. They tried to steal everything from me. I need to know how deep this goes. The district attorney's office was all polished wood and hushed voices. I sat beside Marcus at a long conference table, facing Thomas and Vanessa with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Mrs. Reynolds, began the mediator, a woman with a sensible bob and gentle eyes. We're here to discuss potential resolution before proceeding to trial. The evidence gathered is substantial, but trials can be lengthy and emotional. There's nothing to discuss, I said firmly. They attempted to steal my life savings and have me declared incompetent. Mom, Thomas leaned forward, his face a mask of contrition. We made a terrible mistake. We got caught up in some financial troubles and made a desperate decision. But we're your family. Family, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Tell me, when did you first decide to betray me? Was it before or after you helped me plant Dad's memorial garden? Thomas glanced at his lawyer, who nodded slightly. We never meant to hurt you, Vanessa interjected, tears welling in her perfectly made-up eyes. We were going to pay it back. Thomas lost his job 6 months ago. We're about to lose the house. That's a lie, Zoe stated flatly from beside me. Thomas still has his job. He's been diverting company funds, too. Thomas slammed his hand on the table. You have no right to be here. This is a family matter. She's here as my witness, I replied calmly. And apparently she's the only honest person you employed. Kenzie, Vanessa reached across the table. We can work this out. You don't want your son to go to prison, do you? Think about how it would look. How it would look? I repeated incredulously. You're worried about appearances now? After planning to lock me away in some facility while you spent my money? We found a buyer for our house, Thomas said quickly. We can start paying you back. Just drop the charges and we'll make this right. Like you were going to make right the $90,000 you already stole? I asked. Thomas's face darkened. You ungrateful... Mr. Reynolds, the mediator warned. No, let him finish, I said. I want to hear what my son really thinks of me. Fine. Thomas stood up, ignoring his lawyer's attempt to quiet him. You want the truth? You've always been controlling with your money. Dad left it to both of us, but you've hoarded every penny. Your father left everything to me, with instructions about your inheritance, I corrected. Which, by the way, you would have received on your 40th birthday next year. Thomas froze. What inheritance? $500,000, I said quietly. That's what you would have received. No strings attached. The color drained from his face. You're lying. It's in the will, Marcus confirmed. The will you apparently never bothered to read before trying to steal everything. We didn't know, Vanessa whispered, shooting a panicked look at Thomas. It doesn't matter now, I said. That provision is being removed as we speak. Thomas lunged across the table, his face contorted with rage. You vindictive witch! You can't do that! Security rushed in as Thomas knocked over water glasses and scattered papers. As they restrained him, he shouted, I'll contest the will! I'll tell everyone you're crazy! No one will believe you over me! The mediator quickly ended the session as Thomas was escorted out, still hurling threats. Well, Marcus said quietly beside me, I think we just strengthened our case considerably. All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Michaels presiding. I smoothed my skirt as I stood, acutely aware of Thomas and Vanessa at the defendant's table across the aisle. 8 months had passed since that day at the bank. 8 months of evidence gathering, depositions, and sleepless nights. The trial itself was mercifully brief. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged documents, falsified bank statements, emails discussing their plans in explicit detail. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. On the count of attempted grand theft, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of forgery with intent to defraud, how do you find? Guilty. Each guilty verdict felt like both a victory and a wound. When it was over, Thomas was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Vanessa, who had turned state's evidence against my son, received 2 years probation and community service. As court adjourned, Thomas was led away in handcuffs. He locked eyes with me one final time, his gaze hollow. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered on the steps. I declined to comment, but Darlene had no such reservations. Justice was served today, she told a journalist. Kenzie is the strongest woman I know. Later that evening, I sat in my garden with Zoe, who had become something of a surrogate daughter during the ordeal. Her job prospects had initially suffered after standing against Thomas, but Marcus had connections at a law firm where she now worked as a paralegal. The roses are blooming beautifully, she observed, sipping lemonade. New beginnings, I replied. I've decided to establish a foundation with part of the money, something to help elderly victims of financial abuse. That's wonderful, Zoe smiled. You're turning something terrible into something good. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Can we talk? I'm truly sorry for everything. I showed the message to Zoe, who raised an eyebrow. Are you going to respond? No, I said, deleting the message. Some betrayals can't be undone with apologies. Detective Rivera joined us, having stopped by to deliver final paperwork. The last of the recovery process is complete, she announced. Every penny they took has been returned, plus interest. What happens now? Zoe asked. Now, I said, watching the sunset paint my garden in shades of gold. I live my life on my terms. No more looking over my shoulder. To new beginnings, Detective Rivera raised her glass. As dusk settled over us, I felt a weight lifting. The pain wouldn't disappear overnight, but for the first time since that day at the bank, I felt something like peace. You know, I said, breaking the comfortable silence, I've been thinking about that trip to Italy I always wanted to take. I think that's a wonderful idea, Darlene replied, joining us from the kitchen with a plate of cookies. Have you ever wondered what it takes to truly know someone? I asked them. Whether we can ever fully trust after being betrayed by those closest to us? The question hung in the evening air, unanswered but acknowledged. Sometimes asking the question is enough. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, surrounded by true friends, I was exactly where I needed to be. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you? Like and comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming life's greatest challenges.